Hi all, welcome to this video about fighting the London for one knight f6 players. So after d4, knight f6, we are focusing on the move bishop f4, but if white plays knight f3 first, it will often just transpose. So a couple of things I want to say before going on with the actual lines. So with the London system, white gets quite a harmonious setup. None of its pieces are getting in the way of each other, and these two bishops. This is our enemy number one, and this is our enemy number two. So I think in any setup versus the London system, it's always important to occupy or challenge the center, and also to play against this f4 bishop. White brings it outside of the pawn chain and wants to play e3 later rather than play e3 first and block in his bishop. But also notice that now the queen side is weakened a little bit, which might become important later. And also the bishop is exposed here, so it might get attacked later. So that will be a part of our strategy to attack and win this bishop. We will do it by playing the move e6, immediately freeing the diagonal for this bishop. Getting ready to castle quickly if we need to, and our idea will be play c5 and to keep this pawn on d7 as long as practically possible. Why do we want to keep the pawn on d7? Well, white has some straightforward plans of playing knight f3 and knight e5 later. And with this pawn on d7, we can always play d6 to kick it back. So knight f3. For example, let's say if white plays c4, I think probably almost no London player will play that. But here I want to show you that you immediately can play something like bishop b4. And here also strike in the center. And you have given away your bishop, but here you can get quick development. You win a tempo on the queen, play e5, and you can check out this position for yourself. But let's check it with the engine. It's quite okay for black. Of course, it's outside of the scope of this video, but I just wanted to show you that the idea of freeing this diagonal, which becomes relevant if white plays something like, for example, here c4. So after knight f3, we are playing c5, putting pressure on the c4 center. So we are playing in kind of a modern way, undermining the center with our pawns, maybe later with pieces. But we are leaving this pawn here, and we want to take on d4 at the best moment possible. So here after e3, we play knight c6. We are still keeping this pawn on d7, and white will probably play c3, as you can see here. And many moves will often transpose to this position with the triangle pawn center, typical for the London system, with this bishop on f4, and then this bishop will come to d3. This knight will often be placed on d2. It really depends, but that's usually white's idea. Knight e5 is also typical, but like I said, at the moment we can still prevent it with d6. And here after c3 we are attacking the bishop with knight h5. White has a few moves. Bishop e5 isn't really good since we can just kick it with d6, and after bishop g3 we get the same position if white had played bishop g3 before, but here we got in the extra move d6. So bishop g5 is a little bit more critical. Here you can play queen b6, which is quite effective, but I want to propose to you a more simple move, bishop e7. And here white will probably take. Let me quickly show you if he plays h4, what we do then. So we take, if white plays h4, we take on d4. White will probably play c takes d4 or e takes d4. And then you can play h6. If white ignores you, then you can just take and play bishop to g5 here. And after g4, white regains the piece, but his position is not coordinated at all. This pawn isn't that much of a danger, and here you can see the engine wants to put king on f8, probably leave this rook here on the h file to pressure this pawn. And if c takes d4, then you can play h6. If white ignores us again, you take out the bishop, take out the pawn, and after g4 you can drop the bishop to e7. White will regain the piece, but with d6, and well, you have a good position here. Like I said, white's position isn't that harmonious. This pawn isn't really dangerous. You can put the king on f8 if you want, or you play with your pieces first. So that was h4. This is immediately taking is not good, since here your knight is attacked. And after g6, white can take on c5. I was thinking maybe white can even play something like rook takes h5, but d takes c5 is looks like it's the best. And here you have problems with, well, black has problems with his development. So that's why you don't stake, but you first stake here on d4, and after c takes d4 or e takes d4, play h6. White will probably be forced to take, and if he doesn't, then you take, play bishop g5, and after white wins back the pawn, you have a good position. So that was h4. Instead, it's more probable that white will take the bishop on e7. And after queen takes e7, you have the plan of pushing e5 maybe at some moment. So knight e5 attacks the knight here. That's why you have to drop it back to f6. White will probably take. You can see that here the knight doesn't have backup from this other knight on b1. Often it's on d2, and then it can support his friend on e5. So when you would take out a knight, the other knight would just replace it, but here white is too slow. So we will probably take c6, and here I recommend not b takes c6 but d takes c6. After bishop d3, for example, you take this pawn and you push e5. White might castle, and here the pin isn't too dangerous since you can put the bishop in between, so you can block with the bishop. And here a sample line, for example, is something like this. You unpin, you allow white to take because you want to have some attacking fun yourself. Notice these pieces are still out of the game, and white has to be careful because well, his king is currently in more danger than our king is. This check is not dangerous since we can play king c7. And for example, something like this already can get black into trouble. Sorry, already can get white into trouble. So let's get back to the beginning and repeat our first moves. So after bishop f4 we play e6, knight f3, c5, e3, knight c6, and if white doesn't play c3 here but knight to g2, we play the tricky move h6. Why is that? We want to prevent the bishop from coming to g5 later when we jump knight h5. So let's say c3, knight h5, you see the bishop can't escape to one of these squares. Here he will be pushed back again, and obviously can't go here since we just take it. So after bishop g3, we take out the bishop. First part of our plan is complete. And here we can actually play d5. Now there is nothing better to do, and also we don't need to be afraid of knight e5 jumps, since with our knight on c6 we can just take it, and this is totally fine for black. So here let's say bishop d3. Then we can play queen b6. After queen b3, you play c4, forking these two pieces, so white is obligated or forced to take on b6. And after this we have an easy plan of b5, b4. You can bring on the other pawn also later if white takes this b4 pawn. And because this rook here is pinned, it's not so easy to prevent this idea. So here castles b4, and if instead of castles a3, you can still play b4 since this rook here is pinned, so this isn't possible. And here you can just take with the bishop or the knight. And you see here, for example, this is great for black. And also notice that this is perfect setup for you, since all of the black pieces are placed perfectly for a queenside attack. This rook is already on an open file. This knight can jump in. With your true pawns you can break open the white queen side. There are some light squares weaknesses here, so I think it's perfect for black to play this for a win. Instead of queen b3, white might play queen c2, after which you just play bishop d7, and here after knight e5 you can just take out the knight and castle along. And as you can see, this is also good for black. If you're going to play these lines, obviously it will help you enormously to study these lines a bit deeper for yourself. Here, instead of knight e5, white might try g4. You can just take this pawn then. and after castle long, well, your position is still pretty good. Finally, I wanted to mention in this position here what happens if white plays knight to c3. In that case, you take out the central pawn. White will take, and here it's important to play a6 to deny these white pieces access to b5. And well, this is still something you can check out more for yourself. It's not played that much, even though looks like it is the best move for white according to the engine. But as you can see, with 0.0 evaluation, it's nothing you shouldn't be able to handle. Then let's say white plays bishop d3 immediately. Then you can go queen b6 or take out the pawn. Again, for example, after b3, the most played move, here you can see that we have too much pressure on this pawn. So here we just win the central d4 pawn. Bishop e3, this spin isn't dangerous since we can take out the knight with check, and we are just a healthy pawn up. So in summary, after d4, knight f6, bishop f4, e6, we are planning to play c5, then knight c6, and you can basically, just like white, you can basically play these first three moves against almost any move order white plays. Just to show it to you, I'm just going to put it in the engine to make sure I don't make any mistakes. So let's say c3, you can play knight c6 here, you see, totally fine. And after e3, we again reach the same position, after which we can play knight h5 with the same ideas as before. So I would recommend bishop e7, but more played and also totally fine is queen b6, immediately putting some pressure here. But I think this is more complicated since it's not always so great to take out this pawn. White could get a few tempi and get some play against your queen. It's something you can try, check out for yourself. I think bishop e7 is definitely the simpler option. So I really hope that this video helped some of you who are looking for a good reply to the London system. I really think this is a quite straightforward reply to it. It doesn't require to learn so many lines. The ideas are pretty clear. And I think once you get more experience in these kind of positions, you will just have, hopefully, a good time playing against London. And instead of hating to face it, maybe even one day you will hope white players will play it against you. So thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please like, subscribe or leave a comment, and I will see you maybe next time.